How is Thor Love and Thunder connected in 6 steps to 1989's Little Monsters? Join me, Danny Baker, as we connect these two films through the decades. We've got little dogs, slapstick violence, marine biologists, evictions, extreme violence, and cunnilingus. This is the 6 degrees of separation from Little Monsters to Thor Love and Thunder. Alright, this channel is fresh, so once again here's the deal on how 6 degrees works. We connect a classic movie to a new release. Rule 1, we do it in 6 steps, 6 movies. Some good, some bad. If you can do it in less, it doesn't matter because we're doing 6. Rule 2, we connect through those actors that are not in the A-list, they're not getting first billing. If it was the A-list, it would be too easy. Rule 3, we go forward in time. When we connect to the next movie, it's got to be moving the right way, no jumping about backwards and forwards. Along the way, we're going to talk through the trivia, the tropes, and just a bit of general chit-chat. So let us begin. But first, look, it's a necessary evil, but I've got to ask, if you like this video in your heart, then like it on YouTube, please, and chuck in a subscribe, yeah? So, starting with Little Monsters. No, not the Lupita Nyong'o movie from 2019, which is supposed to be great. No, not a deep dive into Lady Gaga fandom. This is Little Monsters from 1989, and we're starting in the 80s once again. So I've got faint memories of watching this as a youngster around my friend's house. The main memory is of piss in apple juice. I must have been so disgusted by it as it's the first thing I remembered. The film is about Boy discovering the world of monsters and befriending one of them. So far, so Monsters Inc. It stars Boy Wonder, Fred Savage as Brian. This was a year after Wonder Years started, so this was him in his prime. He's in a bit of bother now that we won't talk about, but he's one of the original child stars. Howie Mandel plays the monster called Maurice that Brian befriends. I only ever knew him really as an America's Got Talent judge on the odd viral YouTube video. He's also the voice of Gizmo. This film also starred Ben Savage, Fred's little brother, in his first ever role.
There was a real monster!
Boy Meets World was my jam. Corey and Topanga, that's a love story for the ages. So when I saw this in 1989, or around then, I remember being generally freaked out by the film. Some of the monsters were pretty scary, and there's some violence in there, and scaring of babies. It gave me a bit of an icky feeling. There's also a few swears in this for a PG.
We smashed the shit,
yeah,
and then we put the shit back.
I guess it was a different time. Overall, it's kind of a wannabe Beetlejuice, but just not nearly as good. Howie Mandel ain't Michael Keaton.
What are your qualifications?
Well, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I travel quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague, and I had a pretty good time during that.
I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy. Now what do you think?
You think I'm qualified?
So tropes in this movie include a sequence where we see something complicated being built, usually with music in the background, usually built from random parts. Here, Brian creates his monster trap. Next up, we've got a scene where characters get immense satisfaction from smashing things. Here, it's the monster ball scene where they play baseball, but get to smash stuff when they hit the ball. It's a kid's dream. Favourite trope of Little Monsters though, because it's so ubiquitous, is the kill it with fire trope. If you've got something to kill, do it with fire. Here it's the taking down of the monster Snick. So we're at the end of the 80s here, and Little Monsters features 2 other 80s stars, both from Home Alone. Brian and Eric's dad is Daniel Stern, who also narrated The Wonder Years.
There, that's me. Kevin Arnold, 1968.
And our first connector is also from Home Alone. It's Buzz himself, Devin Ratray, not Ratray. He plays the bully Ronnie Coleman, no, not that one, who drinks some piss, pretty unfairly, to be honest. So for our man Devin, Home Alone 1 and 2 are really the pinnacle of his career.
I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my ass.
Since then, he's mostly done TV shows, but always just kind of 1 or 2 episodes. Law and Orders, Blue Bloods, Good Wife, Agent Carter, Louie, Girls, for example. He was in the 2016 remake of The Tick with Peter Serafinowicz, love him. He had 16 episodes of that though, playing Tinfoil Kevin, a homeless, but not officeless, person who lives on the streets near Arthur's apartment. This beats his 10 episodes on Heartland. Alan Tudyk from our first episode, who's also Tick alumni, plays the voice of the boat because he loves a voice role.
Hello, Rumi. I was working on my new theme. Do you want to hear it?
No.
Movies for Devin are slim pickings, to be honest. There's Surrogates with Bruce Willis in 2009. He had a decent run in 2013. But he had Blue Ruin, Nebraska, and R.I.P.D. Well, R.I.P.D. I'm sure was good for his bank balance at least. More recently, he was in more comedy with Rough Night and Masterminds, and then the excellent Hustlers. Unsurprisingly, he returned to the latest and completely unnecessary Home Sweet Home Alone in 2021, which is rubbish. And most recently, he's in Kimmy with Zoe Kravitz. I've not seen it, but I like Zoe Kravitz, and this movie is supposed to be fresh. Now, Home Alone has many similarities to our second film today, in which Devin played a babysitter's boyfriend in Dennis the Menace.
That's me!
So I knew this just as Dennis, because in the UK we had our own Dennis the Menace, who had his own dog called Nasha and was not nearly as cute. The movie though is a classic case of trying to capitalise on something popular. In this case, Home Alone.
Hello.
Let's see. Cute blonde kid, check. Slapstick violence, that's actually very painful, check. Criminal that's actually quite evil towards kids, check. Billy Bird and Bill Irwin, check. Unfortunately, it's not anywhere near as good, despite having Christopher Lloyd, Walter Matthau, Leah Thompson, Robert Stanton, all great actors, but this is just poor. Less than the sum of all its parts, if you will. Dennis himself is played by Mason Gamble, and he beat 20,000 applicants for the job, and he's making the most of that cowslick, man. I feel your pain, Mason. He had a few roles afterwards, movies like Spy Hard, Gattaca, Rushmore and Arlington Road, in the shocking as hell opening sequence as the boy in the street. But now Mason is a proper legit marine biologist. Good on you, Mason, mate, you're doing good for the world. So let's talk tropes, and there are loads of them in this. We've got a big shut up scene.
Shut up!
Usually in response to either someone incessantly talking or repeating the same thing.
Shut it!
That's where Dennis will not stop talking, so Switchblade Sam gives him a big shut up.
Shut up!
There's your life work ruined in an instant. We've got Dennis here distracting everyone from this random orchid that blooms once for like 4 minutes. What I always love though is the comeuppance of a bit of a dickhead. And in this case it's Andrea, Dennis's mum's co-worker. And in the end credits, Dennis's hijinks lead to her getting a bit of just desserts. Just in a nice fun way, you know, it's a family film. So this movie stars a few young kids, including our next connection. So as I said, Devin Ratray was the babysitter's boyfriend, but I didn't say the babysitter's name because that babysitter was Natasha Lyonne. Now Natasha has been in the game a long time. Since she was 6 actually. Not happy that her parents got her involved back then apparently. She started her career with Pee-wee's Playhouse. I think this is a big show for kids in the US. If it was for you, let me know in the comments. I knew him mainly from an issue in a cinema. In the most child star story ever, apparently this kiss in Dennis was her first ever kiss. It was on screen with our Devin. How bizarre. She's got 117 credits to her name in TV and film, but nothing that big in the movies, either small parts or small films, including Slums of Beverly Hills with our man from the last episode, David Krumholtz. Let me know if there's a small movie you like her in and why, because yeah, too many for me to cover. She's actually been in a Marvel movie. She was in the very disappointing Blade Trinity as Summerfield, part of the vampire hunting crew who's got a kid. Natasha had a bit of a renaissance with Orange is the New Black.
I'm on a cough syrup cocktail, it'll make Lil Wayne vomit in his dreads.
And then even more so with her own creation, Russian Doll.
Life is like a box of timelines. You feel me?
And she got Emmy nominations for both. And randomly, Michael Rappaport was her landlord, and he said that she was a nightmare and evicted her. It's that wild child persona of child stars again. Okay, so there's a big elephant in the room, and it smells like sex. Sorry. It's the third movie. It's American Pie. So screenwriter Adam Hertz, when he wrote this, titled it Untitled Teenage Sex Comedy that can be made for under 10 million, which studio readers will likely hate, but I think you will love. And the film made $235 million on what ended up being an $11 million budget. That's good ROI. So this film was the sweet spot for 15-year-old me, high school kids, drinking, sex, all that stuff. Natasha is in this as Vicky, Tara Reid's friend Jessica. She's the experienced one who helps Kevin and Vicky. She's basically the reason Kevin finally goes down on her with the tongue tornado from the book given to him by his weird older brother, Casey Affleck. The rest of the film has a lot of iconic moments and a few very inappropriate ones. Filming someone getting changed in your room. Come on, Hollywood. Alison Hannigan and Eugene Levy, though, these are the standouts in this movie as Jim's love interest and dad. Bit of a trope here of breakout characters stealing the show.
Well, we'll just tell your mother that we ate it all.
Speaking of which, Steve Stifler as well is an iconic character. Again, hitting the nail on the head, appealing to young boys. Sean William Scott, he made the most of this breakout role. He only got paid $8,000 for it. You know when a seminal movie for you has lines that you just say over and over again? That was me with, "Hey Stifler, how's the pale ale?" I was obsessed with saying that all the time. Originally, it was supposed to be, "Hey Stifler, how's the man chowder?" But the ratings board did not like the word man chowder and it had to be replaced. Other characters, I never liked Kevin, or Oz for that matter, just FYI. Oz, though, is an example of the trope where a character becomes the thing they pretend to be. He's pretending to be sensitive and into singing, which is his tactic to get some action, and then he actually turns out to be sensitive and into singing. No. I haven't mentioned Finch yet, but he gets a big trope in this. A classic diarrhea scene is a favourite among teen comedy from this era.
I'm bleeding!
Favourite trope, though, is Jim jizzing in his pants, not once, but twice. I just really like the Lonely Island song, to be honest.
Whisper in my ear that you want some more, and I jizz in my pants.
So this film always seemed like it invented the term MILF, but apparently the term was around before then, but this film just got it in the mainstream. And the MILF in question, who has her way with Finch, is our next connector, the always amazing Jennifer Coolidge. So Jennifer is a character actor legend and a bit of an icon in the queer community. And Stifler's Mum was really her big first movie. She came back for the first 4 main American Pies. Only Eugene Levy though went back for the spin-offs. She was only actually 15 years older than Seann William Scott playing this role. She was 38 at the time though, so she could have had a high school age kid, but Seann William Scott was 23. Classic Hollywood trope of casting grown men as high schoolers.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
Before American Pie though, Jennifer was in supporting roles in comedies like Night at the Roxbury, with deep complex roles like Hottie Cop. Most of her career after that was as supporting roles in comedies. Click, Date Movie, Epic Movie, as the White Bitch. God, those films are shit. Plus being in basically every TV comedy going at some point. Recurring roles in The Doomed Joey was never gonna work. Two Broke Girls and The Fungies, which I thought was going to be some adult animation, but it's actually pretty innocent. What do I say? Voice work is the easiest work. I reckon her best work though is with Christopher Guest and that crew. A Mighty Wind, for your consideration. Best in Show.
We could not talk or talk forever and still find things to not talk about.
Her and the late great Fred Willard are just the go-to actors for a comedy side character, and both got a couple of awards nominations for these. Most recently, she was so good in White Lotus. She perfectly portrayed the needy rich lady who promises the world but then flakes.
Most people, they really don't know what they're doing. You know, they lie you down and then you just get lubricated.
And for this, she actually won an award. Yay! The show was great, including what I'm convinced is an actor actually shitting in a suitcase. So in the same year as American Pie 2, our Jennifer played the role of Paulette Bonafonte-Parcell, the manicurist in our next movie, Legally Blonde. Based on Amanda Brown's novel, based on her own experiences training to be a lawyer, it grossed $141 million worldwide on an $18 million budget. That's pretty good ROI, not quite American Pie levels.
I object.
Brown actually got the screenplay published after sending it over to agents on pink paper, kind of like something Elle herself would do, which got people's attention. And it was initially written as being just like American Pie, a lot more raunchy and stereotypical, and sadly probably going to be more profitable, but it actually evolved into a proper film about female empowerment way ahead of its time. So, the lead role is Elle Woods, and for that role there were loads of people considered. Charlize Theron, Gwyneth Paltrow, Alicia Silverstone, Katherine Heigl, Christina Applegate, Milla Jovovich, and Jennifer Love Hewitt.
What are you waiting for, huh?
They were all considered, but apparently Reese had brains and gravitas, which is a bit harsh on the others, to be honest. So in the movie, she's surrounded by some early 2000s staples: Ali Larter, Selma Blair, Luke Wilson, and Alana Ubach, who has been in so much. I could do a video just talking about her career. If I have to pick one though, waiting. And there's a few good tropes in this one. You got someone putting someone on a pedestal only to be disappointed in what they really like. Here, Elle tries so hard to impress her Professor Callahan, only for the dickhead to try it on with her. We've got the punishment being way bigger than the crime.
That's how I roll.
Chutney, turns out, shot her dad because his new wife was the same age as her. There's also the character who's a bit of a dick to our main character, but they have good intentions.
I thought it could be me. Just take care of your mum.
Here it's Professor Strongwell. She's not very nice, but only because she cares so much about helping her class become good lawyers. My top trope for Legally Blonde though is that moment that's usually at the start of a film where you really get to see what the main character's all about. Here we've got this snooty shop assistant, tries to trick Elle, but she's having none of it. She's too smart, mate.
It's impossible to use a half-loop top stitching on low viscosity rayon. It would snag the fabric.
Now, our next connection from Legally Blonde is also the character with the absolute best name that I've already said. It's Chutney Wyndham, played by the lovely Linda Cardellini. Linda got her start in Bone Chillers. It sounds a little bit like Goosebumps, like horror for kids, and bizarrely had porn star Ron Jeremy in it at some point. But then she featured in a few of my childhood favourite shows: Third Rock from the Sun, Kenan and Kel. She loved Orange Soda too.
We do.
And then the second mention for Boy Meets World, although she nearly came between Corey and Topanga. How could you, Linda? Her big break though was in Freaks and Geeks. It's such a good show. It's got so many great actors getting early gigs in it. Unfortunately, it suffered the same fate as Arrested Development and Firefly from the last episode, cancelled because it just wasn't treated fairly by the network. Damn you networks.
Damn you all to hell!
She got her Legally Blonde role during Freaks and Geeks, and after that she got a role for a lot of people is how they know her, Velma in Scooby-Doo's 1 and 2. Unfortunately, they have 32 and 22% on Rotten Tomatoes respectively. $455 million though in total box office. Madness.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Now, Brokeback Mountain is a seminal film and one that has a few actors in it that you forget. It's got David Harbour, Anne Hathaway, Kate Mara, and Linda. She plays the waitress who dates Ennis and famously doesn't get him. It becomes clear though, you're competing with Jake bloody Gyllenhaal, love. While she's in these films, she's also got a role in ER where she plays nurse Samantha Taggart for 126 episodes. That's dedication, Linda. The most notable other TV appearance was then Mad Men, where she played Sylvia, getting it on with Don Draper for most of the season, and she got an Emmy nomination for that. But back in the land of movies, in the Age of Ultron, the second Avengers film, we meet Clint Barton, Hawkeye's family, and his wife is Linda. She plays Laura Barton, she returns in Endgame, and she's in the Hawkeye series as well. And she's also in Daddy's Home 1 and 2 as Will Ferrell's wife, really? I mean, he's funny and all, but But her role that connects us to the penultimate movie is a pretty small one. She is a pet shop worker in Super, who does not like cats.
But you can train a rabbit to use a little litter box, which makes them better than cats. Their faces aren't as flat and freakish looking.
So this is an early James Gunn film, and true to form, it's dark, very dark, and violent. Rainn Wilson stars in the peak of his Office fame, and he plays Frank, who becomes a superhero to save his wife, despite having no powers, and is just really violent. So apparently Gunn wanted John C. Reilly, but back then he wasn't big enough, and Gunn's ex-wife Jenna Fisher recommended Wilson, who she worked with on The Office, and who in turn sent the script to Elliot Page, who he worked with on Juno.
That ain't no Etch-a-Sketch. This is one doodle that can't be undid, Holmes Gillett.
So both main stars are good, but they've been in better things. Elliot's done some great work, Juno, Inception, Whip It. I wish he could have had more to do as Kitty Pryde though. She's an underrated superhero. Super is a pretty jarring and depressing film. It's got some funny bits and some out there ideas, but mainly it's just some brutal violence that is really the staple of Mr. Gunn. I was a bit meh on it overall. It's just not funny or slick enough. He didn't do well in the box office. I think the idea was just done much better in Kick-Ass. But what are the tropes like then? Well, what I like here is the surprising realism. I like the way people react to things like getting hit by a wrench. It would bloody hurt. They don't just glance it off and get on with it. There's also the fact that, look, if you save your wife who left you, it might not actually be a happy ending. My favourite trope, though, is in a film where the bad guy, who's obviously bad, is actually quite good-natured and nice. We kind of had it with Chiwetel Ejiofor in the last episode, and here we've got Kevin Bacon putting up with a lot from Frank, and he doesn't snap. So Kevin Bacon, who you can connect anyone to in 6 Degrees, by the way, and Liv Tyler, they're two of the bigger actors in the main roles. Our mate from last episode, Nathan Fillion, is here and does a very similar job with Gunn, again, by briefly appearing as a superhero in The Suicide Squad. Now, James Gunn does right by his family, and he cast one of them here in a small role as Toby, one of the thugs, alongside the always excellent Michael Rooker, and he's our next connector, Sean Gunn. Sean is the youngest of 6 Gunns. He's the only real actor out of all of them, and he started slow. He got a small role in Gilmore Girls as some guy installing cable, but then he came out and bashed out 137 episodes as another character. He didn't do a huge amount after Gilmore Girls until brother James got the Guardians of the Galaxy gig. This was the surprise hit of the Marvel Universe. It's so good, so funny, and in Rocket Raccoon, a near unrecognisable bit of voice acting from Bradley Cooper.
That is the most real, authentic, hysterical laugh of my entire life, because that is not a plan.
But the mocap was actually done by Sean. But that wasn't all. He also joined the MCU properly as Kraglin, the number 2 to Rooker's Yondu, who he also worked with on Super. After that, he had the Belko experiment, which I've not seen, but I know of. It sounds brutal. Written by, guess who? James Jimmy Gunn, who sorted him out for the mocap for Weasel in The Suicide Squad, the vastly superior kind of sequel to The Suicide Squad. And he's also the Calendar Man hurling abuse of Polka Dot Man.
You fucking pussy!
He reprised the role of Kraglin in the Infinity Saga final 2 films, which ended with the Guardians taking on the God of Thunder himself, Thor Odinson. Which brings us to our final film, with Kraglin making a very brief appearance at the start of Thor Love and Thunder. So Hemsworth is back as Thor, and he is at his biggest, and I bloody love it. The man is a monster. Even Chris Pratt was in awe of him on set, apparently. I genuinely wonder if it's in Chris's contract to never wear sleeves. Right up until the very end of this movie, it's just constant gun shows. I guess if you're putting that work in, you want to show them off. The Thor movies, though, are strange. There's a big difference between Ragnarok, which for me is one of the best MCU movies, and and Dark World, which is generally considered to be one of the worst. And the first, and unfortunately this latest one, are kind of in the middle. Love and Thunder, it's obviously funny, but for some characters I feel like it's a bit forced and maybe got pushed a little bit too far. As always though, I absolutely love Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. She's got such a good attitude, she's got some of the best lines. Randomly, when the film opened, I was getting some major Mighty Boosh vibes from it. I don't know if anyone else did.
This is all me! Who looks foolish now? You blue book.
Christian Bale's pretty good as Gore, but I find the idea hilarious of Christian Bale, notoriously serious.
Then why the fuck are you walking right through? Like this in the background.
How did he vibe with Taika Waititi and his hijinks on set? So some of the tropes in this movie, you've got a hot actor who is in great shape, you've got to have a shirtless shot in every single installment of your film. This time, however, we go full naked, as shown in the trailer. And we've got a great play here on the idea that someone has their costume under their normal clothes here. We've got Meek, who's a bug, and he's wearing a full formal suit doing a little presentation, but you can see he's got his little blade arms underneath. My favourite trope though is the idea that someone is so bloody perfect that men and women all just want him.
If you were a chick, who's the one guy you would sleep with?
John Stamos.
And they faint at the sight of his godly body. So Thor Love and Thunder is doing well in the box office, a bit of a step down from Ragnarok, but that was a high bar. But with that, we are done. The second ever 6 Degrees in the can. We've gone Little Monsters to Thor Love and Thunder, and as always, let me know in the comments your favourite trope examples. Let me know anything I've missed, all that good stuff. And remember, if you liked what you saw, you need to tell YouTube. Do the like button thing and subscribe, get notified of a new video. If you fancy it, no pressure. Anyway, this has been 6 Degrees, and I'll see you later.